The Dauntless. His face is bleak when she walks into his office. He glances at her and holds up a finger. Repeat that. Internal bruising and no sign of broken bones? Some minor internal hemorrhaging? Second-degree burns at the elbow? Be out of the hospital tomorrow? Excellent. Are there any complications with his weaponry or that of the team? Excellent. It was smart to register kinetic weaponry as cultural garb. He remarks before listening. Very good. You have your orders, Sergeant. Good day, he says before hanging up. My apologies for that technician Dubois. One of our loose leash agents found himself the target of a murderous cult. Is he all right? Harriet wonders as she thinks. There are no pirates or bounty hunters close. That Vernon character is on another world at this point. Is it the Herbert kid? Corporal Herbert Jameson will survive and make a full recovery within a week at the latest. But this meeting isn't about him, technician. This is about you, he says, and she stands at ease. She's not a field soldier, but is painfully aware that she's sticking out the front and back to an absurd amount. At ease, he tells her, and she complies. How are you holding up, technician? Is your new form uncomfortable? Surprisingly not, sir. I expected severe body dysmorphia, but no, I'm fine. I don't like this. I think I look stupid, but I'm fine, she says. She's more than fine, actually. She's never been stronger or faster. Despite everything, she can run a 3-minute mile with ease, and when she loads up to deadlift, she not only runs out of room for the higher weights, but the bar starts to bend under it all. That Granny Nagasha really went over the top with her axiom enchantment. That's a relief. I was concerned. Sir, why did you ask me to come? She asks curiously. I need a spy, he says bluntly. What? A conspiracy in opposition to human life has revealed itself. None of our trained spies or intelligence officers can actually blend in with the local population. You, on the other hand, can get lost in the crowd, Admiral Cistern says, and she looks shocked. But This will be entirely voluntary. If you say no, there will be no repercussions, and you can walk out of this conversation at any time. The only order I have for you at the moment is to keep this between us, understood? Yes, sir, she says, feeling much more relieved before asking a question that's been bothering her somewhat. So if I chose to go through the first half of biomorphic axiomatic rehabilitation and basically undo this, I would be allowed to? Harriet asks, gesturing to her absurd figure. She had actually measured them, and each of her breasts was bigger than her head by 3 inches in diameter. Only if you refuse this assignment. Accepting it would preclude you from returning yourself to normal. Admiral Cistern explains, and she nods. It makes sense. She doesn't like it, but it makes sense. Who or what would you be having me spy on? She asks. An hour ago, Corporal Herbert Jameson was attacked while out on a recreational trip with some of his alien brides. If not for his own axiom abilities, he would have been killed. As it stands, he has a short stay in the hospital to go through. This group identified itself as the Sightless Sisterhood of Spawn Slayers. The police are entertaining them at the moment, and we've lodged a request to have some time with a few of them. I pity the idiots if they get brought over, Harriet says, shuddering a little at the thought of exactly what the intelligence division will do to them if the galaxy is cruel enough to hand them over to the pissed-off and vengeful interrogators, let alone what Sir Philip may very well do to them. Rumor had it that the Herbert kid was getting some training from him, if the lifelong assassin, spy, and saboteur in his late 70s were to take it personally. Save your pity for your own victims. We need an infiltrator to get into the possible human-unfriendly conspiracies, cults, and petty plots to determine whether they're actually dangerous so that we can do something about them if they are. Nip the problems in the bud, so to speak, Admiral Cistern says, and she nods. It makes complete sense to her. Am I to assume that I'm going to get additional training? She asks, and he nods. Yes, you will, and your personal tutor will be arriving shortly. I've been here for 3 minutes, sir, Sir Philip says behind Harriet, and Admiral Cistern sighs. I need to learn how you keep doing that, he mutters as Harriet backs away from him nervously. You have 12 months, sir, Sir Philip remarks with a smile. Now, young Harriet, may I call you Harriet Miss Dubois? He asks, and she nods. Thank you, Harriet. You have a unique and wonderful advantage that most in the infiltration and intelligence occupations would pay through the nose for. You can vanish within a crowd of the locals while simultaneously being effectively immune to conventional poison and possessing a powerful combat stimulant hidden within your own natural biology. This gives you a powerful defense and offense that none will expect. I see, she says. Of course, this only happens if you agree to be our infiltrator, Admiral Cistern says. Heh! Harriet huffs in amusement. Yes, young miss, it would mean you would become Harriet the Spy. Very droll, Sir Philip states, and Admiral Cistern looks confused. A child's book series. One of my granddaughters is fond of it, sir, Sir Philip explains, and Admiral Cistern nods. So how about it, Technician Dubois? Are you ready to become Agent Dubois? Admiral Cistern asks, and she blinks before smiling and nodding. Excellent. If you would please come with me then, Miss Harriet. There is a fair amount of reading for you to do, but first we must have a few practical demonstrations and lessons, Sir Philip says, opening the door out of the office. You are permitted to leave, soldier. I will have some paperwork that will need your signature in a short while. Best of luck with your training. Admiral Cistern says, and the two of them leave. He draws up the form and begins filling them in the silence when the buzzer on his desk goes off. Admiral Cistern, he says, pressing it. Ambassador Nikti Tal to see you, sir. She's welcome here, let her in, he states, and a few moments later the door opens. Ambassador Tal, welcome to the Dauntless. I'm glad to see that you've availed yourself of my invitation. It's quite the ship. There's more reinforced metal in the average hallway than in most small vessels, she notes with a slight smile. We build to last, Ambassador. How may I be of service? He asks as he turns over the form he's signing and placing it under a copy of the Bible. The Holy Book would certainly be more interesting to a thief than the very legalese-filled form beneath it with deliberately obtuse wording. Are you aware of the upcoming events? She asks plainly, and he nods. She knows better than to beat around the bush with him. If she's straightforward with him, then he's straightforward with her. Her swing of wanna fuck was answered with a straight no. When she asked why he explained his marital history and just how recent the wound was, she had been both understanding and respectful. Yes, there is a Senate function coming up, a formal dinner and ball. However, with the bureaucracy, it will be several months or even years until I receive an invitation to any formal gatherings, Admiral Cistern says as Nikti Tal nods. The invitations come with a +1, she says, and his eyebrows go up in surprise. Really? I didn't know you thought so well of me. Admiral Cistern states, and she smirks. Well, I am trying to seduce you, she says, and he smirks. Hey, I'm not some crazy little girl. I know to wine and dine my man. Speaking of which, I formally invite you to the Ulthrax Charity Ball. It raises funds and awareness for the sake of orphans the galaxy over. I see. Formal wear? He asks. Expected. She states, and I presume there is some dance style to help cover our height differences. He notes. Yes, she confirms. Which we will have to practice. He continues. Indeed. Her smile is ear to ear. Well played, Ambassador Tal. Well played, Ambassador Cistern says, and she giggles. Please put my appointments on hold. I have emergency dance lessons, it seems. You were caught up anyway, sir, his secretary remarks, and he nods. Thank you, he states and stands up from his desk. Oh, wonderful. Get your sword, big man. Blade dancing's a part of it. So long as this isn't some backdoor method to betroth me, Admiral Cistern says, and she pauses. I thought of that. You're not the type to take that kind of fun sitting down. Not to mention you're going to have a pretty nasty weapon. That thing may have some good gilding on the scabbard, but I know melee weapons. I can tell the actual sword is a quick and mean thing without any real frills, Ambassador Nikti says, and he nods. Very well. What is this style of dancing called? Admiral Cistern asks, as Ambassador Tal hops out of her chair and pushes it and the one beside it straight up to the desk to clear some space in the office. Armed flow. It's a formal, if ostentatious style of dancing that's adored in the higher classes. It's got 3 forms for each weapon type. We're using the second. The first is if both dancers are the same general size, and the third is if the man with the weapon is a lot shorter than the woman. It's a big sign of trust and has been used in proposals, but I know that sticker of yours will be a gobe sticker if I push it too far. Okay, how does this work? Admiral Cistern asks as he stands in front of her with the weapon sheathed at his side. The whole idea is that the weapon is the bridge between us both. We don't actually touch each other, only the weapon, but only the man has control of the weapon, meaning normally that only you touch the handle. In something like a spear, it means that the spearhead never points to you. The man is never threatened by the weapon, and never not the stronger party. Where did this style come from? Admiral Cistern asks. Horchka, mostly. It was a way to seduce their husbands without scaring them off. Show off how strong and in control they are without making them run by letting the man hold the killing tool. It also showed just how much she wanted him, but that's not the point. Ambassador Tal remarks, and he nods. Those are the taller ones, are they not? Muscle-bound and tusked with skin that very slowly shifts to match their environment. He asks, and she nods. He pointedly ignores the fact that she admitted that this is a massive flirt on her part. It's par for the course. Thankfully, the ambassador has an excellent grasp of the word no. Also very aggressive, not at all patient, and you can find them hired on as leg breakers or security the galaxy over. Those Horchka, the big tusky girls, respect strength in all forms, so of course their favorite mating dance is all about battles. It just happens to be seriously in style right now. Ambassador Nikti says before clearing her throat, as she does when she gets ready for a large and long explanation. All right, this is a sheathed sword-armed flow, second form. Unclip the sword from your side and draw the weapon while holding that scabbard out to me. She instructs, and he does so. She instructs him to hold it vertical, and her hand wraps around the middle as he holds it near the top. All right. This is a neutral starting position, but first is where that sword goes. There are 6 positions for it. They're called rest, thrust, stab, declaration, high, and guard. Point it at the floor with your arm to your side for rest. Hold it at your waist and point it at me for thrust. Stab has you holding the sword out in front of you as if you just stabbed something. Declaration is when you hold it parallel to the floor and pointed to the side. That's usually only ever used as a grand finish to a dance. High is where you hold the sword over your head as if you're about to chop down. Cross is when you hold it at an angle between the two of us. Ambassador Nikti says, and he slowly moves the saber into each position. Good. Now the whole of the dance is to simulate a fight with the male in the position of power. It's a slow dance, so there's little if any risk of anyone actually getting hurt. Now mirror my footwork. I'll tell you where to put the sword. There are some more complicated bits later, but the bulk of this is pretty simple. It's mostly us pacing around each other while holding this scabbard as you swing around a bit of metal. She says and takes a step to her left. Admiral Cistern does the same, and she can't quite help the slight darkening of her skin around her nose and cheeks.